Alrighty. So it's Sunday, 10:30. About the birds with me today. It's 29th of November, and we're in another heavy rain system. The river across the street, the floodplain is up, not coming across the top of the bank yet. We'll see if it's supposed to go down or up or what it's going to do. Anyway, this is carrying on from yesterday's post where I was introducing myself. So I want to share some inner thoughts, inner emotions, the process of being a kid that spent their summers on a 6-section farm/ranch, and then all of a sudden, because it was sold due to my grandparents' poor health, and then that was all taken away. I was really happy in that circumstance. I could make friends with wild critters. I was surrounded by horses, and I didn't have much parental or grandparent. You can't do this and you can't do that. The only thing I was told by my mom for sure was don't go in the pig pen. So, but everything else was open, and so I became really enamored of the horses. They still had a chore team, which my Uncle Ray drove. Ray was born 3 months premature, an umbilical cord strangulation. He was born in February, March, and when Granny knew she was going to have him, that she was going to give birth, she told Grandpa, go hook up the team, and they had a sleigh, and they made, it was 24 miles into town, and they made it about halfway. There was a coal mine there, a little local coal mine everybody used, and there was a shack there, and a coal miner, I guess he would have been, and they stopped there, and Granny had the baby there. And then Grandpa said, well, I'll just keep going into town. And she said, well, there's no point in that. It's all over. Take us home, and I'll look after him at home. Now, I remember Granny's big kitchen cook stove. And I don't know if you're familiar with those wooden cook stoves. I'm not even sure. I searched my memory banks. I can't remember if it was coal or a wood stove, or it could have been both, either or. Anyway, they have those big warming cabinets above the stove, and that's where she raised him. Was in the in that shelf. It's closed in with cupboards in it. That's where she raised her 3-month-old premature boy. And he was Uncle Ray. So Uncle Ray drove the chore team, and so Pete and Mike. And I was very much in love with Pete and Mike. They were wonderful. And I'm very much familiar with the cows, the milk cows, and of course there was a few saddle horses around. And I was just so infatuated with them. But all that changed when they sold. So that's when my mom got me into music, because she knew I was desperately unhappy. So I worked really hard at my music career. And I think I started it when I was 7 or 8 years old, I'll say 8. But the thing that happened with that was, when you're a little kid and you're trying to figure all this stuff out and remember I had only just been diagnosed as being very short-sighted. So reading the notes at the regular size that everybody used was difficult for me. I had to peer at it, and I was an accordionist, so I had to reach around to my instrument, and of course all of the struggles that a person has when they're learning how to play an instrument, and of course that brings out your temper and your frustration, but it's not like you can get mad at a sibling or a parent or a friend and, you know, scream and yell at them and make them do something because you're having a struggle. It doesn't work that way with music. You have to learn to overcome those difficulties, those mental, emotional, and physical disabilities or limitations that you have, because it's you and your instrument and your music. And it depends on how badly you want to be able to do that. So I practiced like a crazy person because it was something that I could do. I wasn't in Granny Hart's way, because Granny Hart and Grandpa Hart moved in with us because Grandpa was too sick. And it was family responsibility. So, but she was a dictator, and so the best thing for me to do was to stay out of her way. That meant I could either walk in the park a few blocks away, which I did. I ran tremendous distances, and I practiced my instrument. And I learned about emotional control. And because I had loved being at the ranch so much, I had learned to fall in love with wild birds and chickens and horses. And I had, through my music, I had an outlet to express my love of nature. And so, you know, there's a few different types of musicians. There's those that are very technical, not very emotional. There's those that are very emotional, and to us old birds it sounds like just a bunch of noise. But then I didn't want to just make a bunch of noise either, because that would have got me in trouble. But I wanted to be technically correct, but I had this ability to express my emotions, my joy, my sorrow, my happiness, depending on what music I was playing, and so that was noticed, and so I was a pretty devoted student, and it was about I think 12, 13, around that area, that I started the local radio station in Edmonton, I think it was CFRN, they had a talent contest. So don't you know, I went and played live on the radio station, and that was pretty cool. Scared stiff. I mean, I was a reclusive kind of kid, so I didn't have an audience that I had to play for, but I had everybody in the radio world. So I got through that. And then the music school kind of started to pay a little attention to me. And when I entered grade 8, they came up to me and my mom and dad, and they said, we'd like to hire Sandy to work with our some of our beginner students, because we have enough that we need another instructor, and we would like her to do it. So when I started school that September, I inherited 50 beginner music students that were basically about my age, a little older, a little younger. So I started teaching. I did a lot of teaching. And then because of that, I ended up playing in a 3-piece we played in a bar, but it was a pretty discreet bar, and it was a lounge. So my dad, because I was way underage, my dad had to accompany me with that. So that was okay. He kind of grumbled, but it was okay. And then I got playing in a big swing dance band that played to a very large ballroom situation. We'd have maybe 500 couples dancing at any one time. So I did that. That was on Friday or Saturday night. And then, and this was all before I was 16 years old. And then on Sunday afternoon, I was asked to join a classical competition band, which I did. And so I was a busy kid, and that was all fine by me. But what it meant was that I had this, because we were doing classical music and on Sunday afternoon, and when you play in a big swing band, you're playing all fingers and thumbs on the right hand. Anyway, 4 fingers on the left hand, they're all busy. That's pretty technical stuff. And so you've got the technique stuff, you've got people that you're playing in front of, very different styles of music and very demanding music. And so I had to learn to overcome my lack of self-confidence. I had to learn to overcome my shyness, my ineptitude around, especially adults, because I was always with adults. I was seldom with kids my own age, except when I was in class at school. And I was definitely a square peg in a round hole at school. I just ignored everybody. And plus, I was earning my own money, and so there was a very classy ladies' dress shop just down from where my mom worked in a big hobby shop. So I was better dressed than almost everybody that went to school with me. And of course, that would have been in the 60s, and so I had the hair to go with it. Anyway, so I grew up mentally, emotionally, learning different tools than most kids my age, and still being socially, kind of on the fringe of what would be considered normal. But I always wanted to do the horses. That was always my big thing. And so in 1969, I said to my mom and my granny, "Oop, I just see a hummingbird. I have to put food out for them. I haven't done that yet." It's the first one I've seen for several months. I even bought sugar for them. Okay, so anyway, I said, I have found this barn in England that has a certification program, and I'm going to go. Cheeky, don't chew on the chair. So I did that. And so that then was my access point into the professional horse world. So the professional horse world is, if you're going to be a competitive dressage rider, it's first of all, it's a very isolated sort of sport. It's not like a team sport. So you spend a lot of time in your own facility, which I had built. I built my indoor arena with my mom and dad's help. I paid a contractor to put the posts in and to put the roof trusses and the skin on the roof. We built the rest of it. Anyway, but I built my business, and I got very busy, but one of the things that I noticed with all of my students, especially my competitive students, was there was always this big, first of all, everybody always focuses on the physical abilities and training of riders. But I very quickly learned that there was this whole other side, the mental, emotional side to it, and of course I was dealing with that too, because I had deep visions of grandeur, and here I was, starting young horses and trying to figure all this stuff out, as well as riding my own horses. And reality is one thing, and the picture of these beautiful horses that you see in these gorgeous books, that's something else again. And so I was trying to get these two things, in focus. And to a very large extent, I was managing to do that, but I had hit a wall with my own personal competition horse. He was winning where we were at, but I couldn't go the next step in competition. I couldn't do certain maneuvers. So when Bill desBarres walked into my indoor arena that Saturday afternoon, and he said, I would love to work with you because of your horse and how that horse behaves. But of course that horse, she was born being such a sweetheart. So what Bill did was he gave me the physical tools to go past where my physical blocks were, but he also challenged me mentally and emotionally. Because I had invested so much time and effort and financial reserves into getting where I was convinced that what I'd been taught was the whole answer. And so I really did argue with him. And so after he left that first time he came, and I don't remember, he might have spent a weekend with us. And I had my mom had a very serious talk with me afterwards, because dressage discipline, it can bring out some pretty volatile emotions in a human being that has high drive to succeed. And I was pretty tough on my horse, and I'm ashamed to admit that that's the truth. So Bill introduced a whole new set of possibilities to me. I'm going to shut this off and begin again so it doesn't get too long.